Hi friends, let's take a look at Ethereum. Ethereum versus the US dollar, Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Will we look at that today? Will we not? I get so little feedback about it. I don't know. We'll see how we're getting on. What's happened with the prices? Well, what did we speak about and how many times have we spoken about this? I do have to feel that I have to feel that's the wrong way of saying it. But of course this channel deserves, I like people so often say on the comments, this channel deserves a heck of a lot more subscribers because we've called everything really, really well and we talked about things and put things into context really lovely for everybody recently. Fake out zone on terms of this ascending triangle was taking us down to, in fact, the full measured move off the back of it, was taking us down to this line here at 367 or so region, and that's where we've seen the prices go down to. Now today, they've actually only come down to where you could consider sort of the fake out zone of this thing to be at, which is why I was falling over my words a little earlier, which I would say would be in that region right there of this thing. And of course, we're back inside it again. Maybe we could have a whole replay of these events from earlier on, or from before, and see this kind of play out again. Of course, we can also adjust this here to encapsulate that price action, perhaps even move it up a little bit, and then you've got body there, wick there, and it's going through the body just there. Let me move this down a wee bit so that and then there you're looking at this being in this for quite a significantly longer period of time, perhaps breaking out in and around about this area here, if this were to be the case. This is very shallow and narrow, so I'm not going to put too much stock on this one in terms of being a pattern that's worth looking at too much, especially considering that we've already had all the sort of the juicing. We've extracted all the juice out of the pulp of this one already, more or less. Instead, what I want to do, because we've spoken about this in the past, this is on all the episodes, you can go back and you can look at yesterday's episode, it's not going anywhere. What I wanted to do in this episode instead was just to remove all of that noise from the chart and leave this line on here just towards the top side. Okay, so we know what we have got some top side resistance in there at 400, just kind of underlining the point that is already quite clearly made by this line here, this white line, but just kind of underlining it or overlining it or whatever with that red line so you can see it's important. And looking down towards this area down below at 367, of course 370 really being the key area in terms of discussion points on this one, because that's where the 236 comes in at. We should activate that to make it valid, if you will, and then we could see movements down towards any of these targets. And the 618 golden pocket zone on this one comes in at the 280 to 290 region down below. That is in dollars, of course, $290. This is the Ethereum versus USD charts. Of course, the Ethereum GBP charts there at the minute, they're in around 299. We've spoken about these numbers, but if you want to see if you're talking about this in terms of dollar prices, we're at 390 at the minute. That's where your targets on that one. So yeah, and instead what I wanted to do was talk about the lows and the highs and what we've had on the go here. And in fact, I think what I'll do as well is I'll not even really bother too much to talk too much about at great length about this, about the price action in the 24-hour time frame, other than to point out that when we came up towards these highs and around that area, we got some bearish divergence on the go, and so far that's been playing out. Okay, movements beyond this are going to start to see, the question being asked about whether or not that's still the case, and if we're getting rid of it, and yada yada yada. But we can cross those bridges when we come to them. Those bridges, when we come to them, are of course $400, 480, or 480, totally $408 would be kind of where I'd be looking at in terms of crossing those bridges. Of course, various other things you could be looking at. But I wanted to then jump down the time frames, go to the 4-hour time frame, and check in with this over here and see what we have over here. So we have this low here, and this is followed up by a higher low over there. We have this. This is obviously just this is sideways price action at the minute. We have this. We have these highs, and they've come in and they've been lower highs and lower highs. So this is consolidating in this period, you could say. Let's bring up the oscillators down below and look and see. Well, of course, that's kind of turned out to be as it is. Is this going to be considered to be some sort of failure on here with this? How are we going to look at this? How are we going to look at this? Right? There's this concept called failures in with the RSI, and it was somebody asked me yesterday to explain the RSI. So naturally, I looked up some chat about it, and it was going on about them, and I think it's probably necessary at some points to use these terminologies, but essentially what a failure kind of often adds up to being is looking like you're getting hidden bullish divergence. If this were to become an uptrend and you looked back at it retrospectively, then you would look at a failure and you would see hidden bullish divergence. Of course, that's not what the is it here? Yeah, is it here where we're talking about it? This is not what they're all about. They don't say it in the textbooks or anything, but that's what it looks like. Let me just find what I'm looking for here. So you got you got Andrew Cardwell. Gonna have to get his books and read it as well. We're talking about positive, negative reversals. Okay, right, fair enough. A negative reversal, positive reversal, yada yada yada. This concept here, it's not the swing failure one. It's this other concept. Pretty good concept, to be bearing in mind. I very rarely talk about it on the channel, especially not in these terms. But I do often talk about, that how these things would work out. If you had a higher low coming in here with a lower low over here, and this were to turn into an upward trend, then you would consider that to be hidden bullish divergence. But in this perspective, because the guy had to write a book about it, and he had to also talk about the opposite of bearish and bullish divergences, and to make it so that he has his own chat and get some money out of it and everything else. And everybody thinks that they're here, everybody's hero, and that they're sent to the world, and everybody is essentially solipsistic in that sense. That's what he called all of this. Okay, so we're looking at this, and now I'm just going to call it that type of idea of hidden bullish divergence. And could we have that type of idea on the go here with this higher low on the go while we have a lower low on the oscillators? Not all of them, but some of them, like the DMI is pushed on in terms of that distance. MACD not so much. Stochastics, yes. RSI just. It has done it. So, is that the case or not? Well, what difference does it make? The difference it makes is that if we see the prices moving up beyond this $408, $420, maybe then we'll have the positivity that you would need to move on beyond it. What other difference does it make? Well, in another sense, we are just oscillating here. And if the prices were to break down below these previous levels, then you'd be looking at them coming in here and kind of undoing the textbooky nature of this thing. You want to see subsequent higher lows coming thereafter on that one. So you'd be undoing that fairly rapidly, which makes it easier to look between two different zones here in the smaller time frames of the $400 zone and the $375 zone as being their two sort of precursors towards, or preludes towards, movements beyond those directions. Of course, movements up here and closes on a 4-hour time frame above here could preclude any immediate withdrawal down below these areas and back down towards that 367 again before we've tested higher. It could. And likewise, the same could be said in the inverted way that if we actually close a 4-hour candle below 370 area, then of course, that could preclude any movements towards the top side in a hurry. I explained what the word preclude means in the Bitcoin video. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. I know you know what the word preclude means, but here I am just talking. So that's what I wanted to look at. That's what I wanted to point out. I've done that now. That's kind of your most positive scenario in the face of what's actually just an oscillating price action, which is going sideways and could be considered to be within a rectangle structure in this range here at the moment as we go sideways in it. Where have we seen this happen before? Well, it doesn't take long to see examples of it. I could show you an example over here, for instance. If I look at the daily time frame going back, for months in between sort of this zone here on Bitcoin, for an example, just to put things, just to give you that palette cleansing sort of look at things. And I could have obviously done the same thing over here on Ethereum, just to give you that idea. I've clearly drawn all over this chart here on the other hand, and it's a bit of a mess. What do I have in terms of concepts on this one? And I think it's quite clear if I get rid of all this crap that what I've done on this chart is drawn in the descending triangle type possibility. And this, of course, could be true. And looking at it as well, what do we have here? We have a lower high on the price action compared to over here, yet we have a higher high up here on the RSI and the MACD and it's not on there. Nah. Anyway, whatever. We have this idea, and could this we were talking about the RSI before here, could that add up to being one of these higher highs on the RSIs with a lower high over here, and talk about a negative reversal where you're blah, blah, blah forms a lower high, RSI forms a higher high. That's what this guy I like to look out for. And then he's talking about sharp declines thereafter. Well, okay, so RSI's versatile momentum oscillator stood the test of time. It was changed a lot since Wilder's days. Will Wilder original interpretation are useful to understand an indicator. The work of Brown and Card will take RSI to a new level. I don't think that that's a fair sentence, right? This is almost dismissive of it. I think that if you were to be dismissive of it, then you're actually, what you're doing is you're actually lowering yourself there, and saying that actually I'm going to be more narrow-minded about it. It's only in combination of all three of these things together can you actually get to take it to a new level, which is what I'm trying to do in this episode for people, to give them something else to think about. If we see the prices then fall on down the way, then it becomes quite clear yet again the importance of this level. If we actually see bodies closing down below in this zone here, which I can just draw in with a nice little rectangle for us on here in this zone, then I would say be aware, because obviously that's a change in conditions, and while this has previously just been wick territory with a very, very little actual buying and selling going on during this phase down here, as we've seen bullas come in and support the price. Now, what can often happen, and what is the psychology behind these triangles, right? Just take a second to explain this, because there's always a lesson to be had. There's always value in this. If you want to hit that subscribe button, then I'd really, really appreciate it. What you can have is you can say, right, you've got somebody, and this guy owns loads and loads and loads and loads of something, and he wants to get shot of it. So what he does is he gets in touch with somebody, and he says to this other person who says, okay, I'll take care of this for you. This person's a stock operator, and he says, and says, okay, I'll take care of that for you. I'll sell off all your crap for you. I'll sell it all off. And I'll also sell it off at a better price than you've been able to get. He says back to that, which translates to, oh my goodness, because there was me trying to sell it, and I knew if I just sold it all off here that I would cause so much slippage in the market myself that it would work out really badly. I would have an impact in the market. I need somebody who knows what they're doing to do this for me. Could you do it? And he says, no problem for you at all. And in fact, it involves buying and selling on his part. Now, this isn't just a two-person transaction. This is just the psychology behind the market in general, although it quite frequently does happen between two parties, especially when it comes to doing things that are like, somewhat, especially if it comes to things that are slightly dubious with an insider nature on them, of course, as well, especially. But anyway, this is sort of like, if you were, Jeff Bezos just sorts his own one out. Big respect to Jeff Bezos. Love it. I love Jeff Bezos just sorting out his own thing. It's fantastic. Whereas, if you were Larry Page at Google or whatever, you'd probably hire JP Morgan to do it for you. Not naming any names, but JP Morgan and Larry Page there as an example. So if you were to, just kidding, by the way. But yeah, so looking at this, and if you were to see prices then spike up from one of these lower areas, then perhaps somebody's come in here and bought it up and pushed up, and that in this area where there is more willingness to buy and sell, you're able to sort of find that liquidity that you need to in order to offload your positions, and all it really takes is to buy up a smaller amount here during this period to force it back up into the area where then you can offload a whole bunch. So say you've got hundreds of millions and you're selling off, you sell off like 10 million there, 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 and then it drops down, and you need to buy 20 million in here and need to buy 20 million in here just to keep this going. And then you're able to sell another 10 million. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You've sold off for 100 million. You've had to buy 20 or 30 or 40 million. Then you can go back over to your guy who says, I had 100 million of them. How much did you sell? You say, I sold 60 million of them at a higher price than you would have ever done. Then he can say, he can get out his little paper bag here, and he can say, here's some cash, and he can pass it over to you. And then what you do is you put that paper bag directly into your, and this is it here, back pocket. Okay, so market dynamics explained in a way that I find you might think it actually helps and settles into your brain. And that is the psychology behind these patterns over here. Now, whether it's one person or 100 people, and whether they're doing it as an actual sort of conspiratorial cohort together in a cartel format, or indeed they're doing it with just purely as a function of the markets inspired by the psychology that they're going through themselves on an individual level, where they trade and take profit and whatever else. That too. And in fact, we've participated in this whole event ourselves over the last wee while with our super duper fantastic, excellent technical analysis, where we looked at these support areas and says, well, hey, look, longing it from the 360s or 370s up the way and taking profit at around about 400 is what to be done here. So while you're staying on the right side of things, that's when you're swimming with the big fish. And that's how that's happened. Great. So lots of value in today's episode. Can we be bothered taking a look at Ethereum, Bitcoin? Well, I'm afraid it's on you, actually, I'm afraid. Sorry, chappies and chapettas. There is it on the screen. There's my chart at the minute. You can see what we talked about in recent times, but I'm not going to bother going into any detail on this one today because nobody said they wanted to see it in any of the previous episodes. I've always brought it up and asked and stuff like that, so who cares? Moving on, going to do link next. So thanks so much. I've been Rocky Outcrop, by the way. I am Rocky Outcrop every day. I do these videos Monday to Friday and frequently at the weekends as well. You'll find me in the Discord if you want to talk to me personally. Of course, the more people that do that all the time, the less time I have for any individual. So I would say in the next few months that's probably going to stop altogether, I'm afraid. But you know how it is. And I've got a target at the minute of 1,500 subscribers. If we could get there, that'd be amazing. So if you've not hit that button yet and you're considering it, do it. We'd really appreciate it. But yeah, youtube.com/Rocky Outcrop if you want to share these videos with your friends. Lots of value to be taken away. If you found some value today in this episode, hit that subscribe button. And I have a shout out to make. I'll have to give a shout out to my good friend Tony Lawson, who is the second member here, who's been a total time as a member, 0 days. He joined 0 days ago. I think that actually was yesterday. Thank you so much, Tony. Really do appreciate it. What Tony is doing here is directly sending some value back to the channel. Of course, it's a nominal amount. It doesn't really matter. We're just talking £4. It's just, I'm going to buy a coffee with this £4 at some point in the future, or with the 70% of it that YouTube actually passes on to me or whatever. All good. That's all good. Really do appreciate it. All he's just doing here is saying to me, thank you so much for the content that you make, because during COVID he's lost his job, but is able to pay his bills because of the what we've done here, and he's just sending a nominal amount of money back as a sort of tip, and that's just fantastic, and it's made me feel great. And I just wanted to say, Tony, you're a star for that. Of course, Ekram Karatas, you're still a star too. But yeah, great. Just had to give you a shout out. Thanks so much. Going on to the next episode.